Hi, everybody. I just had my own self on mute. Isn't that funny? You just never know what's going to happen when you're doing things live, right? So, hi, I am so excited. I just want to double check here that things are broadcasting as they should. So if you see me looking off screen, it's because I'm pulling up the Facebook pages over here so that I can check. Sometimes comments don't come through, so I just want to make sure that I can see them. But yeah. Okay. So, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the number one trick to getting unstuck, and whatever it is that's been keeping you stuck, I promise you're going to walk away today with some tools that are going to help you get out of that space. And so just really happy to have you here. I'm using a program called StreamYard. And so you should have seen, you should see somewhere in the comments area, give StreamYard access permission. If you can please click on that, because then what happens is as I'm interacting with you in the chat, I can see your name and I can address you specifically. And it also helps to make sure that I can actually see comments. I will tell you that occasionally comments don't come through. I want this to be as interactive as possible. And so if for some reason I'm not responding to your comments, if you're watching from my regular Kelly Abanda page, I encourage you to go over to Kelly Abanda Coach, where for some reason Facebook allows the comments to come through more easily from that page. But I'd love to see if you're here right now watching, drop something in the comments, tell me where you're watching from so that I know that the comments are working as well. We are going to really get into some meat here today. And I just want to first say congratulations on taking a step. So you obviously put aside some time to be here because there's some area of your life, it might be your career or your business or your relationships or your health, where you know life isn't looking the way that you really want it to look. And you've been thinking about it and have not taken the action you really want to take. And so we're going to talk today about how to get you. I'm telling you, I'm going to share a really simple trick with you. It's simple, but not easy. But I promise you, we're going to lead up to that. And there's going to be really great nuggets for you here today. So again, this is meant to be interactive. And so if you have questions, please put them in the chat and I will answer that. Again, if you are putting things in the chat and I'm not seeing it, if you can go to Kelly Abanda Coach, Facebook, Kelly Abanda Coach, just to make sure. That's one way of making sure that I can see your comments if you go from that page, and then also make sure you grant StreamYard access. So let me just look here quick. So it looks like, yeah, everything should be live. I see it. And I'm just going to check if anything is happening. Sorry, you know how tech happens sometimes? You're going to see at the end, one of the things that I share is like, oh, hey, Lisa, good to see you. One of the things I talk about at the end is this tip that I have for you. You're going to see how I've just been implementing it right here for my own self. So I live out the things that I coach and I teach. It's not just theory and practice. I put it into practice. And so I'm going to make my face a little bit smaller and make the slides a little bit larger, just so that you can really focus on what I'm going through in this masterclass. So we are talking about how to get easily unstuck, and that's not something we normally think about because stuck means I'm stuck, right? And we don't think it's easy to get out of that. But I'm here to help you figure out how to make it an easy thing. So go from where you are and make it easy to get unstuck and stay out of your own way. So we're going to talk about 3 reasons that you're stuck and the number 1 trick to get you unstuck. And so before I really get into that, I want to read this quote to you because it's really powerful. So I want you to think about how this applies for your life. Growth is painful. Change, yep, that's painful too. But nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere that you don't belong. Where right now are you feeling like you don't belong? Where are you feeling like you have settled for less than your life really should be, or the potential that you do have? You are stuck somewhere you don't belong, and that is more painful than change or growth. Staying the same is actually way more painful. So we're afraid of change. We're afraid of growth because we know there's going to be pain. But the problem is if we stay where we're at, we stay where we're at. And there's a totally different kind of lasting pain that comes with that. Do you guys identify with that? Growth is painful. Change is painful. Nothing is worse than staying stuck where you don't belong. So a little bit about me. My name is Kelly Abanda, and I'll share a little bit more about my story as we go along, because again, I'm telling you, these are things that I do in my life, not just things I've thought about. I have made a lot of pivots in my life, and I have gotten myself unstuck. And because of my experiences, I'm able to look back and say, you know what? I can see patterns here of how I can hold on one second. My microphone just shifted. So we're going to shift it back, and hopefully the sound is a little bit better this way. So a little bit about my background. I hold a master's degree in organizational leadership. And in my own life, as you will hear as this unfolds, I've also successfully gotten unstuck many times. And currently I dedicate my life to helping other people get unstuck in their life. So I'm an adventure coach. I'm a CEO of an organization I started called Design Your Detour. And then I also hold a change management certification from an organization called ATD. And the reason that's important is because any kind of shift you want to make, you have to change something, right? If nothing changes, nothing changes. And so part of my professional background is knowing how to help people and organizations move from where they are to where they're really trying to go. So what are you going to learn today? Here are the things that you're going to learn. The first thing is that you're going to learn the top 3 things that keep most people stuck. You are going to find yourself in one or many of these 3 things that I talk about. And the reason we're going to talk about this is because if I just gave you a tip, I know you want me to just get to the meat and give you the tip of like, how can I fix this? But I want to help you understand why it's so hard to get to this really easy tip that I'll share at the end. And one of the reasons is because these 3 things that keep us stuck have such strong influences. So we're going to talk about why, not only what keeps you stuck, but why it's such a strong influence in your life. And then you are going to have a chance to identify your biggest roadblock. So not just things you're going to see on the screen, but I'm going to help you identify what your personal biggest roadblock is. And then we'll talk about this number 1 trick that you can apply immediately to get unstuck immediately. So you don't have to wait 6 months. You don't have to wait 6 weeks or 6 days, even 6 hours. By the time that we're done here, if you go through these steps with me, you will have tools that you need to immediately get unstuck. How does that sound? Immediately unstuck. I don't care if you've been stuck for years or decades or your whole life. This is going to get you unstuck. So who is this for? This is for anybody who's feeling stuck in any area of your life. So that could be in your career, in your business, in your relationships, in your health. If you feel stalled and stuck, like you know that there's more, you know that there's more potential, you know there's growth to happen, but you are unable for whatever reason to move forward, that this is for you if you're feeling stuck in any area of your life. If you are tired of staying where you are, you've been in the same place long enough and you are tired of being there, you're in the right place, my friend. If you are ready to shift something so that you can move forward, you're ready to start taking action. The pain of staying where you are is becoming great enough that you're willing to address the pain it might take to change and grow. If you are not at that place, if you are still like, you know what? I know in theory, I hear about things other people are doing, but I'm not ready. I don't really want it. Then you might as well just shut this video off, because if you are not ready yet, then these tools mean nothing. You have to be ready. But if you are ready, you're in the exact right place. And I want to just ask you to be open for sharing at the end of this time what has been sticking out for you, what revelations you're having. Sharing is such a great way of connecting with other people and also reiterating for your own self the things that are shifting inside of you. Sometimes when we verbalize it or type it out, it just gives it more weight and makes it more concrete as we move forward. And here's how to get the most from today. Listen, you are here because you know there's something you want to change. You're not here because you want things to stay the same. You're here because you know you want change. So I want you to get the most out of this time. And so here are some tips. Don't just let this go in and out of your 1 year out the other. I want you to actually dig in. And so how you can set yourself up for success is to first give yourself a peaceful space with no distractions. This is so hard in our current world. And I know like some of you are homeschooling your kids. There's all kinds of stuff going on, but as much as you can, shut all distractions off now. Put your phone aside, turn it on silent, make it so that you can't even, it's not even within reach in the moment. If you can, ask your family to give you just the next 30 or 40 minutes so that you can really focus on what's happening. The second thing is, if you don't already have it, get out a piece of paper and something to take notes with, because this, again, is not just meant to be theory, but you are going to be applying the things that I'm teaching you right on the spot. And I want you to be able to take notes. Then another thing that I think about with taking notes is like, think about how many times you've been at a conference or heard a speaker and they're like, they say something that's really great and you're super motivated and you're like, oh, that's going to change my life. And then you go home and somebody asks you about what you learned and you're like, I don't really remember. I just remember that it was good. I don't want that to be today. I want you to walk away. You can forget my name, you can forget whatever, but I want you to walk away remembering the things that you're learning and applying for your life, and taking notes is another way to do that. So as you hear a nugget that sticks for you, write it down. Write it down. Don't just think you're going to remember, because you're not. Okay. And I want you to be interactive in the way of, first of all, use the comments. If you've got questions along the way, type something into the comments. And if you, as I lay things out, I want you to be thinking, how does this apply for me? So not how it applies for somebody else, not about how it sounds good in theory, but how are the things I'm talking about applicable in your life right now, right now. So apply each thing that we talk about to your own life. As you have questions and they pop up, I want you to either write them down so that you can ask later, or put them into the chat. And I'll just mention again, if you have a question that you put into the chat and I don't address it, it's probably because there's a tech issue and it's not showing up. So if that happens, then I will come back later and look at comments and respond to them offline. But you can also go watch this on the feed on my Kelly Abanda Coach page. So facebook.com/Kelly Abanda Coach. And from there, you should be able to get your comments in. Okay. And then stay for the end, because I have a free offer that I want to give everybody who sticks around. I want to help you, not just today, but moving forward too. So, excuse me, here's a question. When you hear the word change, what do you think of? How does the word change make you feel? And feel free to type your answers in the comments. And what I'll do is I'll pull up some of the common things that I see in myself and in the clients that I work with. Here are some words that we associate with change. Change can feel, well, I don't know. It's unknown. I don't know what the future holds if I change something. And so that becomes scary. It's overwhelming. Like I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, where I am versus where I want to be. There's a really big gap there, and that can be overwhelming. And I don't know how to make the change, and I don't know where to start, and I don't know how big of a step I should take. And now I'm overwhelmed. Change can be overwhelming. Then it can also throw off your routine. So even if you're not a routine person, so for myself, I'm fairly unstructured. I don't have a lot of like daily routines that I stick to. But change of any form, especially if you're somebody who enjoys routine, who enjoys habits, who enjoys knowing what to expect in your day, change can throw off your routine. And how does that feel? It uncenters you, right? You're off balance. Here's a really big one. Change makes us feel out of control. And nobody wants to feel out of control. So I know, even if I'm not happy with the way things are right now, change is going to take away any control that I have right now. At least that's what my mind tries to tell me. And so what happens if we feel any of these things? We feel like it's too unknown, it's too scary, it's too overwhelming. What are we going to do? You're going to back right away, right? You're going to back away, because who wants to feel any of these things? Who can relate? Who can relate? Let me know in the chat how you relate to this. Okay, here's a bigger question for you though. Whoopsie. Hold on, I just have to change this so that it's not, we're gonna start sharing again. Whoops. See, you just never know what's gonna happen. We're gonna start presenting again. I don't know how to get rid of this little thing. Does anybody know how to get rid of that? Nope. Anyway, all right, well, sorry about this little technical glitch. I don't want you to see all these little things because you don't need to see that stuff. Hold on. All right, well, we'll just leave it there. It's fine, right? You guys are still with me. Oh, there it went away. Okay, here's a bigger question for you. What happens if you don't change? Oh, it must just be like it shows up and goes away. Anyway, what happens if you don't change? So we just talked about all the reasons why you might not want to change. That overwhelming, it's scary, it takes away your control. But I want to ask you this, and this is a more important question to ask yourself. What happens if you don't change? If your life looks exactly like it looks today, 5 years from now, how are you going to feel? Hey, Lisa, I do see your comments. Yes. Well, I saw you say you're here and then just that one right there. So if you said another one, I didn't see it. So tell me this, what happens if you don't change? What happens if you don't change? Not changing, if you stay exactly the same. And I want to ask you this too. We were talking about it in 5 years. You know, if nothing changes in your life 5 years from now, how are you going to feel? What if we change that from 5 years down to 1 year? If 1 year from now, nothing changes, how are you going to feel? What about 6 months? What about 1 month? So what happens often there is if we start at the 5-year mark, we're like, well, 5 years for sure, I don't want to be in the same place. Absolutely not. Get me out of here. I need to make a change. But as you start to scale it more towards the present, we get more like, well, I guess I'm okay. I guess I'll be okay and not for 5 years, but maybe 3 or maybe 1. I'm fine in 1 year. Well, if you're okay in 1 year, what's to say you're not okay in 5 years? The reality is whatever shift you want to make, now is the time. Not waiting. Now is the time, because there's always going to be, what happens if you say, well, I'm okay in 1 year. 1 year is going to come and you're like, well, I'll be okay 1 year from now. And you'll get to that 5-year mark anyways, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so here is some ways where not changing might make you feel. If you don't make a change, you stay stuck where you are, you may end up feeling stressed. You may end up feeling unfulfilled. You know that there's more potential in you, but you're just letting it sit because you're afraid. You're letting it sit because you don't know where to start. You know that there's something in you that hasn't come out yet. You're unfulfilled. You're going to be stressed because life just keeps looking like it's always looked and you don't like it. How about this regret? You know, they ask, you see this a lot where they will ask people who are on their deathbed, looking back, what would you change? And for the most part, people are not saying, hey, I love that I kept it safe. I love that I didn't take risks. I love that I just did what I already knew how to do. No, what they'd say is, I regret not having more adventure. I regret not taking that risk. I regret not betting on myself. I regret not changing will encourage your life to have more regret in it. And we don't want that. Your unreached potential. So I talked about this with the unfulfillment, like, you know that you could be here, but you're settling for here. That unreached potential is going to cause a gap in you and you will always feel unsatisfied. You're going to settle for less. So you know that your best healthy self looks a certain way, but you're going to settle for less. And that's maybe if we're talking about your physical health. Maybe that means, okay, well, I'm going to settle for disease and I'm going to settle for having to go to the doctor all the time when if I took care of myself, I wouldn't. I will put stress on my family because now they're concerned about my health. You're settling for less than your best because the less feels safer, but it's a compromise and we don't want that for you. So what for you, I want you to really think about this and write it down in your life. If you don't make these changes, if your life looks exactly like it looks right now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 1 year from now, what is that going to do to you? How are you going to feel if you don't make these changes, if you stay stuck? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So here's a little bit about my story. This is a picture of me in Mexico City, Teotihuacan. I don't think I said that wrong. Anyway, it's the pyramids in Mexico City. And a little bit about my story is that most of my life, I was stuck in the safe lane. I was doing all the things that you're supposed to do. Like, you know, I went to college and graduated. I got a good job. I did all the things. I even got married and divorced. I was building a life and I was doing the safe things, getting promoted, doing all the things that you should do. That was my life. But something happened in me now about 4.5 years ago, where I was living in Los Angeles and I was saving money to buy a house. And if you know the Los Angeles real estate market, it's crazy in regular times, let alone, when things are going really well. So that's a really big thing to be saving for a house in a place like LA. And then one day I asked myself this question that shifted my whole future. And this was the question: what is my life going to look like after I reach the goal of buying that house? And here's the really big key. And is that the life I actually want to create? Is that the life that I want to live, owning a house in Los Angeles on my own? And for me, the answer to that was, it's actually not. It's what I should do. It's what I'm supposed to do. It's the next step in life. But I don't want that, because here's why. For me, that would have meant now I'm stuck in a job that is a good job that pays me well, but I'm not satisfied with. I was used to taking international trips maybe a couple times a year, and I probably would have had to really scale that back, because all of any extra money that I might have had would have had to go into the house. I would have been strapped and stressed and had a house. So for me, when I answered that question, I don't actually want this life that I'm working toward. What am I doing? I had a choice there. You have a choice when you answer that question. Either you stay in the safe lane and you go forward anyways, even though it's not what you really want, or this is your magic opportunity to say, look, I'm going to do something differently and I'm not going to stay on that path. And for me, I made that hard choice. And here's what I decided to do. I was like, I don't actually want the house. What I want is that I want to travel. I want to have a really big solo trip around the world and have all of that adventure. And so I went through the process of figuring out how to let go of all those shoulds in order to embrace what I really wanted. And I started to create my life to look the way I really wanted. So I quit my job, my really great job. If I told you all the benefits that I left, you guys would think, oh my gosh, you're totally crazy. I wouldn't change it for the world. So I left to travel the world, and it was supposed to be for 3 months. And then all these magical things happened. And I traveled around the world for over 3 years, 26, I think, countries, something like that. Got to meet people all over the place and had wonderful adventures that I would have never had if I stayed in that safe lane. And now I get to help others in whatever journey they have. Like, listen, everybody doesn't have to take drastic steps like I did, leaving your job and traveling the world. If that's your plan and that's what you want, great, I can help you with it. But even if what you want is something that's much smaller scale change, the same things are going to apply for you. So whether you want to do something grand and quit your job and travel the world, or you want to do something small, like I want to get healthier, I want to have better relationships, I want to start a little side business, whatever it is, we've got to get out of that safe lane in order to make it happen. And I can help you do that. So typically when we think about change, we meet it with this one really big word. We don't like it. We want to resist it. We push back against it. So usually most of us meet change with resistance instead of embracing that change. And so I want to talk about 3 of the biggest resistance factors about why you have been staying stuck. And you might identify with one of these more than the other 2, but I promise you, you're going to find yourself somewhere in here, because this is what I experience and what I see my clients go through all the time. So I want you, again, remember at the beginning, I was like, make sure that you are thinking about how all of this applies to you specifically in your life. And so each of these, as I go through, I want you to put in the comments too, like, oh yeah, that's me. I identify with that. This is totally me. Here are the reasons that you are staying stuck. Overthinking. Oh my gosh, this one is so huge. So you find that your brain is kicking in and it is taking over. So we all have this internal voice that we call intuition. So this intuition might be speaking up and saying, hey, listen to me. I have something I want to tell you about how your life could shift a little bit, the things that are possible for you that aren't happening right now. And the intuition might be like, wouldn't it be fun to take that art talent that you have and start selling some things? Wouldn't that be kind of fun to explore that? And you want to start going down that road because you're like, that sounds fun. But then your logic kicks in, your brain kicks in that tries to make things fit in an order. And it's easier for us to let that logic kick in and take over than to follow intuition, because our logic, at least we think, is a safer thing to follow. And so if you find that your brain kicks in, so you've got maybe a gut and intuition, a leading towards something that feels uncomfortable, but you are excited about it, and then you find your brain kicks in and tells you all the reasons that you shouldn't do it. This is part of overthinking. Another way overthinking presents itself is that your brain tries to figure out every step. So you're thinking, okay, I want to go from here to there. And your brain's like, well, you better figure out every single step of the way before you start going. Because that's the way you're going to know. That's your logic kicking in as well, right? But I'm trying to figure out every step before I take the first one. I want to know the end. The problem here is, when have you ever had a plan and every step goes according to how you planned? It just doesn't happen. But overthinking is one of the reasons you're going to stay stuck. Another way that overthinking presents itself is overwhelm. So that thing I was just talking about, you're here, you want to move over there, and you know that it's going to take a lot of work to get exactly where you want to go. And you're not sure where to start. You're not sure what are the things that, what's the first step and the second step and the third step, and you don't want to get them out of order. And now I'm overwhelmed and there's just so much to do because there's so much space between here and there. Your brain has shut down the ability to move forward. You are overthinking, my friend. You're overthinking. Another way overthinking can present itself is this term called imposter syndrome. So if you haven't heard about this, definitely look it up because it is prevalent all over the place, and social media is not helping with this. But imposter syndrome is where we will look maybe at other people and think, oh, well, they're at a certain place and I'm not there, so I'm not good enough. Or I know I'm not the absolute world's expert to talk about that thing, so I better not talk about it at all. I'm not good enough. People are going to know I'm a fraud. People will understand that I don't know as much as they do, or whatever it might be. Imposter syndrome will kick in as a way of overthinking and tell you you don't have what it takes. You do not have what it takes. Just sit yourself right back down again. Has anybody identified with that? Imposter syndrome can get me all the time. You also can find this in comparison to other people. You'll look at somebody who's doing what you want to do, and you'll find all the reasons why it works for them, and it's not going to work for you. That's a version of imposter syndrome. The reality is there's very little that somebody else can do that you can't do. Maybe you have to work extra in some areas that they don't, but the same would be true in reverse. There's areas they'd have to work harder that you won't. Here's another one about overthinking. If you are thinking to yourself, I know I want to make this shift, but now is not the time. Let me tell you something. If you are saying right now, now is not the time because of money, of time, of resources, of whatever you're going to fill in the blank with, now is not the time. If you're saying that now, then you will always be saying now is not the time, because you will always find an excuse why now is not the perfect time. Now is always the perfect time if you let it be. Okay. So let's move to the second reason that you are staying stuck. And this one, we're just put them all on the screen all at one time. So perfectionism. Hello, who can relate to the term perfectionism? So I want to just point out, a lot of times when we think of perfectionists, we think of the people who are like OCD and will do everything like exactly the right way. And that is one way that perfectionism can show up. But there's actually two parts of a spectrum that I see perfectionism showing up in my life and others. So that perfectionism that we normally think of is kind of the overachieving perfectionist, the person who's doing everything and doing everything really well. That's a form of perfectionism. Here's a place where it happens and we don't always understand that this is perfectionism because it looks very different. It actually looks like it's opposite of that overachieving part. Perfectionism can also show up as procrastination. So a lot of people who are procrastinators are actually perfectionists. The reason that they're not taking action, and I'm guilty of this myself, the reason that we don't take action and we procrastinate is because somewhere in us, we're saying, if I start this, I'm going to have to do it perfectly. And I'm too overwhelmed by that. So I'm going to put it off and just stay where I'm at. So it can look like that you're being lazy. It can look like you are just procrastinating, but that's a form of perfectionism. And so you've got on one hand overachieving and the other hand looks like doing nothing. They're both coming from the same root. We just acted out differently. So who identifies with one of these two? Tell me which on the spectrum you are. Are you the overachiever, or are you the person who's an underachiever or appearing to be an underachiever, or do you vacillate between both? I can vacillate between both of those. I will also see perfectionism show up as I'm not going to take on any hobby or task or interest that I don't feel like I can master, because I want to always look like I can master it. And so I will just not even go there because I have to be the best, right? So I have to be the best, even if it's my first try. Nobody's actually the best on their first try, but somehow you're telling yourself, if I'm not the best on my first try, I'm just not even going to do this. Is that you? Yeah. How about this? I need all the right credentials. Yeah, Lisa procrastinator. Yes. I need all the right credentials. I hear this all the time, you guys, all the time. And I'll tell you, there's two kinds of goals that I talk about a lot with my clients in coaching. There's two kinds of goals that are really dangerous. And one of them, a lot of us are familiar with, which I call the should goals. Those are things like, I should go to college. I should get married. I should buy a house. I should. Because that's what society expects. It's what my family expects. It's what I thought my life was going to look like. It's a should goal. But there is another kind of goal that's, I think, even more dangerous. And I call it the substitute goal. A substitute goal is one that's going generally in the direction of your bigger goal, but it's one that's easier for you to attain. And so you take that instead of doing the thing that challenges you and actually gets you closer to where you're trying to go. So an example of a substitute goal in my life was getting a master's degree. I'm glad I got it. I'm thankful for that degree. I learned a lot. It gave me a lot of skills, and nobody can ever take it away from me. But at the time, what I really wanted actually was to start my own business. That's what I really wanted, but I wasn't brave enough. I was too scared. And so I wanted to do something that I was still growing and learning. So a good goal in that direction is getting a master's degree. I'm still learning and growing. But actually in the back of my head, I thought, well, maybe once I get the master's degree, I'll feel like I have enough credential to start my own business. Well, let me tell you, I was saying now is not the time. It doesn't matter. I get the master's degree. That doesn't solve everything. That was a substitute goal. What I should have been doing the whole time is taking the risk and starting my business. It's not that substitute goals are often really good goals. They're something that builds you up, but they're off track of what you really need to be doing. Okay. Can anybody think of a substitute goal in your life? So I think about this with the right credentials. So I have a friend who is a teacher, and they're a fantastic teacher, always getting really great reviews from students, and parents love them. But the field that they're in, they have training in the field, but not in teaching. And so they're often going back to like, well, I don't have credentials as a teacher. I don't have credentials as a teacher. It doesn't actually matter. Nobody's setting them down and saying, listen, you don't have the right teacher credentials, because they don't care. What they want is education for their kids, and their kids are getting what they need. But this friend is just thinking, I don't have the right credentials. If you are thinking I need the right credentials, I'm telling you, there's some other thing underneath that. There's some other fear that you have or limiting belief that you're holding about yourself, because unless you're doing something that actually requires specific credentials, real estate, police officer, whatever, doctor, like things that you need very specific credentials, you're probably thinking those credentials are going to give you the confidence to take your step, and they're not. Those are going to end up being substitute goals. How about this phrase? If I don't nail it, I fail it. If I don't nail it, if I don't get it exactly right, it's like nothing ever counted. This is perfectionism to a T. You will, maybe you'll do something, and to everybody around you, it looks like you did really, really well with it. But what you say to yourself is, but I got this wrong and that wrong and that wrong. And so it's like the whole thing is a failure because you didn't do everything as perfectly as you may have. If I don't nail it, I fail it. This is a terrible perfectionistic way to think, but it is very prevalent. If any of you have thought this, I want to hear it from you. All right. And then here's another way of perfectionism will keep you stuck. I'll step out. You're saying to yourself, I'm going to wait to step out until I know that I can't fail. When is that ever going to happen? You will never know that you can't. It will never be a guarantee that failure isn't going to come. So when you have this thought, I will step out when I know I can't fail, you're going to stay stuck forever. So perfectionist, there it is. All right. Reason number 3, why you stay stuck. Stay with me, you guys, because I promise we're getting to the tip that's going to get you unstuck. But I want you to really identify what for you is keeping you stuck. I know that there's things in here that are keeping you stuck, and I want you to identify it, because when we get to that tip, what is going to happen is it's going to give you more possibility of saying, I know how to apply this tip because I know what's holding me back. So they fit together. So stick with me. All right. The third big reason why you're staying stuck is self-doubt. You're saying things to yourself like, I can't trust my intuition. So, earlier when I was talking about that voice that speaks, that's giving you ideas and creativity and vision, that's telling you to stretch yourself and grow and be better and to be like the best version of yourself, that intuition is talking to you, but you're saying, well, I can't trust it. I can't trust that that's actually a good thing for me to do. So I'm just going to leave it. I don't have what it takes. You know, that person over there, people often would hear my story of quitting my job and traveling and be like, well, I wish I could. And I always stop people and say, listen, why can't you? If that's something you really want, actually that you really want, not in theory, but if you really want it, why do you think you don't have what it takes? Because I don't have a superhero cape. I don't wake up in the morning with superpowers. I'm just like you. The difference is that maybe I saw the opportunity to shift and to make intentional changes to start living in a way that I wanted. But your self-doubt will get in the way and say, I don't have what it takes. I don't have what they have. I don't have what I think somebody else needs. And so I'm just going to stay stuck. Maybe you have a voice in your head that says to you, that looks at your past and says, listen, you always in the past give up anyways. You always give up. So just don't even try because you're going to give up anyway. And you might as well just not even start because you never follow through. So just stay where you are. This one is a big one in my life because I love starting things and I don't love finishing things. It's how I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I'm an ENFP, like all those things kind of, I'm meant to like be a starter of things versus a manager of things. So it's partly how I'm wired, but it's partly this message I'm saying to myself is, you know what? I always give up or I don't follow through. And so don't even start. It keeps you stuck. What about this? I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Like, who do I think I am? Who do I think I am to have a different kind of life? Who do I think I am? You know, I should just settle. Everybody else around me is just settling for life as it is. I should just, you know what, I don't deserve to have a better life. I don't deserve to make more money or be more satisfied or not dread Mondays. Everybody else just does. So I should just, no, that's keeping you stuck. It's keeping you stuck. How about this? Somebody else is better. We talked about this a little bit with imposter syndrome, but you're thinking to yourself, you know what? Somebody else is already doing that thing and they're doing it better. So I'm not even going to try. I hear this all the time from very talented people who bring their own unique special sauce to whatever it is they're talking about. Maybe you want to start a side hustle. Maybe you want to speak. Maybe you want to be a mentor. Maybe you have a skill that you want to share with other people, but you're like, well, I'm not the expert. I'm not as good as them. So I'm not going to do it. Listen, the world needs what you have. The world needs what you have. But if you hold it back, you're stuck. Okay, the last one about this third reason that you're staying stuck around self-doubt. You think, I don't have the money or the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. And those are very important things. If you're going to move forward, a lot of times you need money and you do need time. But I want to challenge you that if I said to you, I have $10,000 for you, it's a mile across town, and if you can get over there in the next 15 minutes, it's yours. That $10,000 is yours. You're going to find time in your schedule to get over there in 15 minutes, right? You found time. Or if I say to you, I'm going to give you $10,000, but you got to bring 2,000 and you just get to keep all the 10, you just give me 2. Are you going to find that $2,000 somewhere? You bet you are. The difference is that right now you're holding on to those resources so tightly. And you are saying, well, unless I know, the reason that you're going to say, I'll go make that happen with the $10,000 is because you're like, well, that's a guarantee. And life doesn't come with a lot of guarantees. But if you're going to not be stuck anymore, if you're going to get to the next place, you can't hold the excuse of I don't have the time or I don't have the money. You can find the time and you can find the money if it's important enough to you. If you recognize that there is a payoff for you, it may not be the $10,000, but what's the payoff? What kind of life are you trying to create? So for me, I had to look and say, leaving my job is definitely a sacrifice. There are securities that come with that. There's pay that comes with that. There's insurance that comes with that. But what I'm trading that for is freedom. I'm trading that for passion. I'm trading that for adventure. And for me, those are more important. So what for you is going to be more important so that you will find the time and the money to make the changes that you need to make? All right. So what do all these have in common? So I talked about those 3 things. So what were they? Overthinking, perfectionism, and self-doubt. What do all 3 of these things hold in common? They are about fear and wanting to retain control. They're about fear of something and wanting to retain control. It's an illusion. Control is always an illusion, by the way. We're never actually in control. We just think that we are, but we're not really under control, or we don't actually have control. But I want you to ask yourself this question. So take out your pen and paper again, and I'm actually going to set a timer here so that you you can write down what is applying for you. And remember that the point of today, you didn't come here because you want to leave the same. You came here because you want something to change. So do this even if it's hard. Do this even if you're embarrassed by what you write, because there's really no reason to be embarrassed about it. We've all had these kinds of thoughts. You may think that you're the only one, but you're not. It's okay. But if you don't start from a place of honesty, you're never going to actually get to where you want to go. So I want you to take, I'm going to set my timer here for a minute. And I want you to actually, not 15 minutes, that's a little bit long. You may not get all the way through answering this, but I want you to at least start. So I'm going to set the timer now for 1 minute. I want you to ask yourself, what do I gain by holding on to these habits, by these thoughts? So what do I gain by continuing to overthink, or to be a perfectionist, or to doubt myself? And I know that your initial response is going to be like, I don't benefit, I don't gain from that. But I'm telling you, there is something underneath it. So what do you gain by overthinking? What do you gain by procrastination? What do you gain by self-doubt? I want you to write that down. Okay, so I'm starting the timer now, and I will give you that time. So feel free if you are already done or want to write anything in the comments. Otherwise, I'll just be silent for the moment. Halfway through. All right. Oops. All right. So how did you guys answer this? What is the payoff for you? What do you gain by holding on to these habits? What do you gain? What do you gain? I would love to see what you have written in the comments. I'll tell you some things that I see happen often. So, or what's happened in my life, because here's the other thing, like as I coach people, I'm vulnerable and share with my own experience as well. So for me, the things about like overthinking, the payoff for me of holding on to overthinking, if I let that go and I just let myself get into motion instead of overthinking every step, overthinking gives me space to not actually have to act. So it gives me a buffer that it makes me feel like, well, I'm thinking about all the things that I should be thinking about. I'm making sure that I'm not being illogical or emotional or, getting in my own head about something or thinking something's possible and it's not. I'm doing a good thing here, but really what I'm doing is keeping myself from having to take a risk or take action in which I may fail. So holding on to that behavior, that habit, is giving me some sort of safety. So I'm curious to know from you, what do you gain by holding on to these habits? All right, one more question, and I'm going to give you another minute on the timer. And then we're going to get into how to move forward from here. So here is the next question. So we just talked about the gain that you have by holding on to those things that keep you stuck. And now I want to ask you, what would happen if you let go of fear and control? So here's another way to say that. If I could wave a magic wand and tomorrow you woke up and you didn't have any fear and you felt like everything was controlled, like you didn't have a fear of anything and you feel like you're in control, what would happen then? There's no fear. All right, 1 minute, and I want you to write what would happen. Oh my gosh, this is so good, you guys. There's so much good here. Yes. And write these down. You can come back to these at any point. These questions are always valuable. They're always valuable. You've got about 20 seconds left. What would happen if you let go of fear and control? You wake up tomorrow and you're just fearless. What do you do differently? Whoops. Apparently I'm not really good at operating my timer. Anyway, what would you do if you let go of fear and control? So type it in the comments if you want to share. What I will see often with this in my own life as well, if I let go of fear and I'm not worried about always being in control, I have freedom, I have confidence, I take actions that I wouldn't otherwise take, and I let the vision of where I want to go be more important than what's happening in the immediate. Because I'll tell you that anything that you really want to work for is going to take work. It's not going to be pretty all along the way. There have been many times, like while I was traveling, overall, fantastic experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But there were certainly times where I was like lonely, or what am I doing? Or what's going to happen after this? But when I let myself get out of the fear mode and just say, let's be present, let's be in the moment, I could enjoy what was happening. In my business, if I stay out of fear and I stay out of needing to be in control of everything, I serve people better. I show up better. If I show up and I'm afraid of, I don't want them to not like me, I'm afraid of disappointing them. That's not what it's about. I'm not showing up to serve people for me. I'm showing up to serve for you. So if I'm focused on me instead of you, there's a problem, right? So for you, what would happen if you let go? If you just let go of all that fear, what's possible for you? What is possible for your future? So let's talk about it. What's the secret? What's this number one tip secret that I've been holding on to this whole time? What is the secret to getting unstuck? I'm telling you, I said this up from the top. It's simple, but it's not always easy. I promise you it's simple. It's not always easy, but it's easier than you might think. And here's what it is. Take small, messy action. So action is the key word here that I want you to focus on. Action, taking action, whether or not you know all the things that you need to know, whether or not you feel like you're the expert enough, whatever it is, action is the key to getting unstuck. Action, action, action. And part of the problem of why we don't take action is because we're trying to do it perfectly. We're overthinking we need to know all the steps, or we doubt that we are knowing exactly what to do next. That's why we call these small, messy actions. And I know some of you are really cringing at the thought of messy. You're like, I don't want to do it if it's messy, but I'm telling you, that's why you're stuck. You have to take small, messy action. This is the secret. Small, messy action. So when I was leaving my job, that first started by me talking with a friend and being like, I'm thinking about doing this and I feel like I'm crazy. And then it led up to the next thing, which was, okay, I need to have a conversation with our CEO who has come to really rely on me for some things. And then it was like, I actually have to leave the job, and then I have to put in my notice, and like all these things, but I didn't have to do all of that at once. I had to start with small, messy action. Here's the other thing. You have to take small, messy actions and do it consistently. Do it consistently, not one time. You don't just take 1 week and say, I'm going to do one thing this week, and then you stop. Nope. Small, messy action, consistently, 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 until you see that you are moving toward your goal. This is the way that you get unstuck. Small, messy actions done consistently. So I want to give you a tool, because a lot of times when people hear that, when you hear taking small, messy actions, you're like, oh my gosh, there's 1,000 different small things that I could do to go in the direction that I want to do. So instead of getting overwhelmed and thinking about all the possibilities, this tool will help you to really narrow down and get done specifically. So you remember at the top, I promised you're going to walk away from here knowing specifically what you, in particular, in your personal situation, can do next. The confidence and the clarity about doing the very next thing. And here's how you're going to get it from this tool called the 3 and 7. So instead of thinking about that whole picture, I want you to just break it down. And I promise you, if you're saying to yourself right now, I don't know what to do, that's why I'm stuck, you know more than you think you do. You're just getting in your own way. So use this tool to help you process through that. What are 3 things that you can do in the next 7 days? 3 things that you can do in the next 7 days, 3 and 7. 3 things you can do in the next 7 days to get you in the direction of your goal. Not all the way to your goal, but in the direction of your goal. So for example, maybe your big goal is, I want to start my own business. Great. You don't have to start your own whole business in 7 days. But maybe the 3 things that you could do this week are, I can talk to somebody else who does a business similar to mine. I can figure out what I need to do to start the actual business. Like, do I need to do an LLC or a corporation, or can I just do it under sole proprietorship? You're going to research that. And I'm going to reach out to the Small Business Association to get some resources from them. Those are 3 things. Boom, done. Each of those is going to get you toward the direction of your goal, even if it's not all the way to your goal, but they're in the right direction. And here's the thing about action. Action actually creates clarity. So one of the things you're waiting for when you're stuck at the start line and not doing anything is, you're like, I want to make sure it's all clear. But the issue is that until you start acting, there's so much that you're just not going to know. You don't know yet what you don't know. So you can't even ask about what it might be later, because you don't know yet what you don't know. So you have to start just taking small, messy actions. Those small, messy actions, like let's say you do those 3 things, you might learn something from the Small Business Association that impacts the 3 things you can do next week. And you wouldn't have known about those things until you had that first conversation. Do you see how this all can ladder up? So what are 3 things that you can do in the next 7 days? And they can be small, they can be big, they can be medium, they can really be scary, they could be really easy, they could be simple. It doesn't matter. For you, what are 3 things that you can do in the next 7 days? So this tool will help you to keep consistently in small, messy action. Don't worry about how it all fits together either. Just think about 3 things you can do right now with the resources that you have. So I see Lisa said, so true. She got an email from a neighbor on Nextdoor about selling their home. Rather than waiting for them to respond, she just went and knocked. So she's a real estate agent. So she just went and knocked on their door, and she's meeting with them tomorrow. So she didn't have to have a whole presentation. She just took action. She took small, messy action. That's incredible, Lisa. I'm so excited for you. I'm so proud of you. That's awesome. Small, messy action. She could have gotten in her head and been like, well, hold on, let me get a PowerPoint ready, and I need flyers, and let me do my hair differently. Nope. She was like, oh, here's an opportunity. They said they might want to sell their home. I'm going to just go talk to them. There was an open door, and she went through it, right? Small, messy action. Here's something I talk about a lot, and if you've heard me talk, you already know this answer, so you can type it in the chat if you know. But this is scientifically based. I'm going to share some stats with you that are scientifically based. And this first one comes out of a study from the University of Scranton. They did a study just talking about like the chances of reaching a goal that you set. So if you just set a goal on your own, you just decide on your own, you're sitting even like right now, maybe you're listening and you're like, okay, I'm going to go for that goal of starting a side hustle. That's the goal that I want to set. And that's all that you do. You start thinking about your 3 and 7, but you just keep it to yourself. Your chances of reaching your goal, they're so minuscule. People often are like, I don't know, like 40%, maybe 20%. Single digit 8, less than 10%, 8%. That's your chances of reaching your goal. If you just decide on your own and stay in isolation, 8%. We don't want to stay there though, right? And so I have hope for you. Science, another study shows us. So science is saying this. This isn't just like Kelly thought it up or some other like guru was like, oh, let's just say this. It sounds nice. This is a scientific study. So the Association for Talent Development also did a study. And they showed that you can actually flip your numbers by doing 2 simple things. So 2 simple things will dramatically increase your chances of getting to your goal. So we already talked about small, messy action, right? So that's always going to be part of it. But just doing that alone without these 2 steps, you're going to end up in that 8%. So does anybody have a guess about what they are? I love seeing people's guesses. Even if you're watching a replay, type in the comments what you think these are. So the number 1 way is to share your goal, and to share your goal with somebody who actually has some investment with you. So not just like you get on a bus and tell the bus driver or the cashier when you're checking out at Target. And they're great people, I'm sure, but they're not the people that we're talking about. So if you share your goal with somebody who has a vested interest in your life, family member, friend, accountability person, coworker, somebody who actually cares about what's happening in your life, you share that goal. Just by doing that 1 step, your chances go into the 60%. That's a pretty big jump from 8, right? So it's worth sharing your goal. Share your goal with somebody who cares about what's happening. But here's an even better thing. If you get accountable, so that study showed that you can go into the 90% chance of reaching your goal if you share it, and then you have accountability. That gets you into that 90% chance of getting your goal. And I'll tell you, this is why coaching works so well. And especially if you do coaching in a group setting, which is one of my favorite ways to do it, because you have accountability and you have people who are going to be surrounding you, reminding you of all that potential that you set out. And they're going to be holding you accountable. They're going to ask you about it. They're going to check in about it. You know that there's some kind of a structure and a schedule that you're going to have to stick to. And you know somebody's going to ask you about it. Well, let's be honest. How many times have you started a fitness goal and when you're doing it on your own, it just takes very little for you to end up giving up on that? But if you know somebody's going to meet you at the gym or at the park or wherever to do a workout and you know they're counting on you, you know you're more likely to get out there, right? Accountability is huge, and you can't ignore that in your personal life either. So if you want to go from 8% into the 90% about reaching your goal, these are the two ways that you do it. Share your goal and you get accountable. It is a huge game changer. So remember at the beginning when we talked about how are you going to feel if you don't make a change? If your life looks exactly like it does right now in 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 6 months, if nothing changes, you're going to feel stressed out. You're going to feel unfulfilled. You're going to regret that you didn't take a chance sooner. Listen, I hear this all the time too. People are like, I'll do it later. Later never comes. Or it's too late. Why is it too late? Time's going to pass whether or not you're going for your goal, so you might as well start. You don't want to regret this. You don't want to feel like you've left unreached potential on the table. That's how you're going to feel if you stay stuck. There's a reason you showed up today. It's because you've been feeling stuck and you know that something's missing, but you haven't been willing or known what to do. So I've given you tools to know what to do. Now you got to take it. Stop settling for less. And anything else that you might, if you don't change, how is it going to feel? I don't want that for you, and I know you don't want that for you. Now ask yourself this question. As we're getting to the end of this session, I hope you are taking all these nuggets and really incorporating them into your life. I'm telling you, this can change your whole future if you let it. What will embracing the change you need to make give you? Pride, fulfillment, energy, freedom, peace? What are you going to get? Like, I want you to actually picture this right now. So close your eyes and imagine now I've waved the magic wand, and tomorrow you wake up and you have done the thing that you set out to do. You have done it. You've done it. How do you feel? Where do you feel it in your body? Do you feel light? Do you feel free? Do you feel proud? How do you feel? Remember how this feels. Wake up every day and remind yourself how you're going to feel on the other side so that it reminds you to stay in that small, messy action, to set your 3 and 7, to set your 3 and 7 again, to have accountability. You are doing this because you are seeking fulfillment and energy and freedom and joy and peace. All of those things that are missing right now, you're seeking it, and this is how you're going to get there. So I want to give you a gift. I want to give you a gift so that you can take what we've started today and keep moving. So some of you already know about this. I know Lisa's already in, but I am doing a 3-day pivot challenge. So whatever it is that you're looking to change, starting tomorrow and then Thursday and Friday, each day I share with you one tool. I've developed this 3L system. It's amazing, y'all. I just implemented it again in my own life in the last few weeks, and I was like, whoa, this is so powerful. So there's a 3L system that I came up with that helps everybody, no matter what change you want to make, no matter where you're at right now. If you follow these 3 steps, it's going to help you have confidence and clarity about how to move forward. So you've seen that a little bit today, and this is going to be even more. So over the course of 3 days, you get teaching. There's group coaching that happens, and Lisa can attest to how powerful group coaching can be. You learn not only about you get coaching from me, you get to get on that call and ask me questions and I can talk to you personally, but also you learn from other people and you realize that you're not doing this journey alone, that you're not the only one who suffers with overthinking and self-doubt and procrastination and perfectionism and all those things. You learn from the way I coach you and the way I coach other people. So if you are like, I need something, this is another way of holding yourself accountable, because then you're making it public, the thing that you're working toward. And this is a safe way to do that. And so if you look on my page, I can actually, I'm just going to come back in here. And I just won't post that thing again, but I'm going to post in the comments the link to join us. So Lisa's highly recommending this 3-day class. She did it a couple of months ago, and then she's done some more stuff with me as well. And I love that she shows back up, because she's been there and she knows the power and what it is that we go through here. So I'm going to put in here the link that you can join. You can also look at my pages at the top. If you click on the banner, there's a link in the details that you can click on that, but it's also right here that I put in. So you should be able to see it. So if you sign up, do it ASAP, because what happens is once you're signed up, then I give you access to join a private Facebook group. And that's where a lot of this is going to be happening. So do it as soon as you can, so you can get in that group as soon as you can. And then the next 3 days are going to be so powerful. So whatever it is that you're trying to shift, these are free tools for you. So please pick it up. And then I am going to be launching a 3-month group program. It's a brand new thing. I'm combining things that I've done in the past and adding really tremendous, great new things. We're going to launch in November. And that's another way that you can really start going. In that one, though, I'm telling you, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to slow it down and reconnect with your soul. So that program is going to be called Soul Ignited. And part of what I want to do, because we're so busy and we're running so fast and we're on this should and substitute, and I have to get these goals done. We don't take the time to slow down and be like, what does my soul actually want and need? Am I creating the life that I actually want? Or am I creating a life that's just like, well, I thought that was the next step, so I did it. I did that in my professional life, in my life. All my professional life, really. I just was like, I don't know. I didn't set like, I want to get to this place. I was like, oh, this looks like a good opportunity. Oh, that promotion looks good. Oh, I'm going to do this over here. And then you get somewhere and you're like, well, I got to that space, but I didn't actually ever intend for that. And so there's no satisfaction in that. So when we do this 3-month, we're going to start by slowing down and reconnecting. And then we'll talk about like the things that hold you back and how to get over that. But if you're not starting from the place of like what's authentically coming from your soul, even right now, if you've been thinking today about some goal that you're setting because you think you should set it, you're going to give up anyways, because it's not actually coming from inside you, especially if it's going to take sacrifice or extra work on your part. So it's so important to be honest with yourself and check back in about what you really want and need. So we'll do a little bit of that in the 3 days. So we'll start with a little preview. We'll do a little bit of that tomorrow on day 1. But I just encourage all of you, please take advantage of these. These are free tools. There's no obligations to you. I really am passionate about this. And I also believe that once you work with me, you will know there's power in that. And you're going to want to come keep working with me. It's what happens. It happens with Lisa. She knows for sure. But there's no pressure to do that either. I know that I have a gift to help you. And I want to keep sharing that gift as much as I can, because my purpose here is to help other people get unstuck and to get into action, creating the life they actually want. And so I want to help you do that. So I hope to see you in the 3-day pivot course. If you are watching this as a replay and you have any questions, tag me in the comments. Make sure you tag me, because then I can come and answer those as well. But so hope that you take what I've given you today and you're ready to just implement that in your life, that those 3 and 7 are things that you're excited about doing, that there's been a spark of hope in you, that your future doesn't have to look like your present or your past. And that feeling of like, I'm just stuck, I'm stuck, that you can start eliminating that because you apply the things that we talked about today. So if you came in late and you didn't see it, as soon as this finishes, it should post so you can go back and watch it. And I will also just say there's a little, you can install I forget what you call it, but when you add something to your Chrome tab, there's one that you can add to Chrome that helps you watch videos faster. So it's like video play. I'm really bad with technical stuff, but if you're like me, like I'll listen to podcasts on 1.5 speed or whatever, you can watch this video with that plugin. It's a plugin. You can watch it faster, so you can, you don't have to listen to me talk, although I do talk kind of fast, so just be careful. Anyway, thank you for being here. And my hope, my prayer, my wish for you is that this is the beginning of an incredible journey for you, and that you recognize you don't have to stay stuck. This is your chance. This is the universe calling to you and saying, it's your time. You are ready. You have what it takes. So pick up these tools and these resources that are being put in front of you and trust your intuition that it's all going to come together the way that it should. But you have to first pick up and take action. So namaste. And I just am so happy for you having spent time here and joined in this time together, and that you know that you don't have to stay stuck. It's your choice right now. You get to pick up, am I going to stay stuck and do the comfortable thing, or am I going to push myself and pick up these tools and get uncomfortable because I know the payoff is better. I know what the best answer for you is, and I hope that you're ready to do it. All right, I'm here to meet you on the other side.